Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we are taking the ultimate micro to macro journey. We're going to start way down deep inside the microscopic mechanisms of our cells, and then we'll travel all the way out to the very real macroscopic human impacts of cellular disease. We're talking about the fundamental life and death of our biology here, and what actually happens when the microscopic systems that literally power us just start to break down.
To guide us today, we'll start with a massive hypothetical about cell replication, examine the two primary ways our cells die, explore what happens when cellular energy just completely fails, and finally ground all of this in the real human impact. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. If cells stopped replicating.
So what would happen if all of our cells instantaneously stopped replicating? This thought-provoking prompt popped up in the r/Ask Science community, and man, it really makes you wonder about the delicate, mostly unseen balance keeping us alive every single second. Like, just pause and think about that. What if the invisible engines inside you just stopped? It totally forces us to confront how heavily we rely on continuous microscopic division just to exist in the world. If replication actually stopped, the consequences would be fast and completely devastating. We would instantly lose our natural healing factors and cell regeneration. You get a paper cut? Yeah, that's never healing. We'd also see immediate, really aggressive aging across all our tissues. This would basically trigger widespread programmed cell death because we'd hit a hard biological wall. You see, our cells have a natural limit of roughly 20 to 50 divisions. Once we hit that, without replication, there are 0 replacements. None. It absolutely highlights how dynamic but fragile our biological baseline really is.
Section 2. 2 ways cells die. Now, cells obviously don't live forever, right? But when they do reach the end of their lifespan, or maybe suffer an injury, they definitely don't all go out the exact same way. We've basically got a stark contrast between 2 distinct mechanisms here. First up is apoptosis, which is this active, carefully orchestrated process that scientists often call a death with dignity. It's usually triggered by milder insults. The cell actively shrinks, condenses, and safely seals away its internal contents so it doesn't harm any of the surrounding tissue. Necrosis, on the other hand, that is a passive, catastrophic event triggered by intense, massive insults. It leads to rapid cell swelling, membrane lysis, which basically means the cell just explodes, and causes widespread, dangerous inflammation.
Looking right at this confocal microscopy from a PNAS study on neurotoxicity, you can literally see the difference between these two fates. Up in those top right and middle left frames, check out those tightly packed, really bright condensed dots. That's apoptosis. The cell is neatly packing its nucleus away. But then look at the bottom right. Those are dangerously swollen necrotic cells. They've totally lost their structural integrity and are just spilling out everywhere. It's like the ultimate visual representation of biological order versus complete biological chaos.
When you map out the timeline of these events, a super crucial pattern emerges. After an intense biological insult, necrosis spikes incredibly fast. You can see those dark bars shooting right up, happening in under 3 hours. Apoptosis, though, it really takes its time. Shown by the lighter bars, it's a much slower, delayed response to milder injuries, taking up to 18 hours to fully manifest. The cell is literally taking the time to orchestrate its own dignified shutdown. But what actually decides which path a cell takes? Well, a lot of times it just comes down to the sheer intensity of a free radical like peroxynitride. Just a tiny shift in concentration makes the call. At 10 micromolar, you get that safe, delayed apoptosis. But turn that dial up to 100 micromolar, you trigger rapid, explosive necrosis. The line between cellular order and inflammatory chaos is razor thin.
Section 3. When cellular energy fails.
So when that cellular order gives way to chaos, and energy fails on a much wider scale, we really have to look at our cellular power plants, the mitochondria. When the microscopic life cycle breaks down, our mitochondria can no longer produce basic energy. Systemically, across your entire body, this massive energy loss and internal overload is what we call mitochondrial disease. It's exactly what happens when the very structures meant to sustain human tissue just fundamentally fail. And because mitochondria exist in almost every cell in our bodies, a failure here triggers a relentless cascade of symptoms. Patients report staggering burdens. We're talking profound intellectual and learning disabilities, severe chronic fatigue, exercise intolerance, crippling muscle weakness, dysautonomia, peripheral neuropathy, vision loss, hearing loss, major GI and sleep issues. The systemic breakdown is just overwhelming, compromising the entire human system all at once.
Managing this kind of systemic energy failure is incredibly tough. Medical care teams end up having to rely on interventions like highly customized physical therapy, using really specific strength and endurance training, and the goal here is often just to help patients maintain their gait and hold on to their mobility and quality of life for as long as humanly possible.
Section 4. The real human impact.
There are thousands of mitochondrial diseases and zero cures. Just let that sink in for a second. The science we've been breaking down today isn't just some abstract academic exercise. It is a literal, daily fight for survival for thousands of families.
But there is a totally unified effort underway to change that. The Mitochondrial Medicine Conference brought together world-renowned pediatric neurologists, researchers, and families to fight these diseases. Having all these different groups in the exact same room is a huge deal. It bridges that gap between microscopic bench science and real, lived human experience, bringing actual hope to people navigating these devastating conditions.
And this community is fighting back with so much deep human empathy. They're hosting direct Ask the MitoDoc panels, where adults and parents can finally get face-to-face answers from the actual specialists. They're creating networks for teens and young adults to find a support crew who genuinely gets what they're going through. It's families helping families navigating grief and the insane complexities of clinical trials together. They even find healing through creative outlets like author Nancy Dorrier guiding families to write out their own stories, processing their grief, and trying to transform a really dark diagnosis into light. It is a completely holistic battle against a microscopic failure.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought today. As we continue to relentlessly map out these microscopic cellular battles between apoptosis and necrosis, and as we study the devastating effects of energy loss, what will it actually take for us to finally tip the scales toward a cure for the humans fighting these diseases every single day? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.